you open up the file Bones with Spring FLA, it's in the week 4 folder from the examples. You'll notice that there's this file with kind of this new thing that we haven't seen before, armature 1, and I think it opens up on this last frame, so you'll see something looking like this. If you scrub the timeline, you can see that what's happening here, there are a couple of different symbols. And the symbols, if we look in the library, there's an arm and there's this little ball symbol. The symbols have been interconnected, so they have these little joints applied to them. And whenever you make a movement, if you click and drag one of these, then that changes the joint position. So there's one, here's another, and then there's another. The other thing about it is, as I click on these joints, let's look in properties. Let's come down and just click right there. Notice it says IK bone. There's a couple of different things that you can do. You can constrain it, but for right now, I just want to show you this springiness. Right, so there's this idea of springiness to it, and I can apply different strength to the springiness. So let's go ahead and beef up this strength. And then there's damping. Damping is how much does this rate change? And it says right there, changes rate of decay of spring strength. Right, so I could come in here and let's just adjust this strength. I'll have the strength be a little higher on the bottom one and a little lower as we go up, right? So as I come down the bone setup here, there's the strength and here's the strength. Okay, so notice damping is about the same for all of these. So what does this mean? I've set my normal keyframes, right? But notice that there's no keyframe. If I zoom in, there's no keyframe down here at the end, and yet I'm still getting some movement up at top. And that's because of this thing called springiness, right? And in fact, if I extend this further out, if I come out, let's just press F5, notice it still behaves more. So if I'll just run it from the start, the movement finishes at 55 or 56. This is the last keyframe, but because of the springiness, I get some extra animation in there. So this can be real handy if you're just trying to set up something to be moving in the background. It doesn't need to, if you're trying for precision, I wouldn't think that this is a good idea. But if you're just trying to get some additional movement, you could set something up with an initial back and forth, and then and then set its springiness and have no dampening. And then when you have it, just extend it out beyond that, and you'll just see that waving back and forth. So that's what bones and springiness do. Let me hide this for now, and let's just make a new layer. Let's just kind of do this real quick from the start. So I'm going to just drag out a couple items from the library, right? So here's one, and I'll drag out one more. And let's scale this one down a bit. And I'll just do one more. I'll just option copy this or alt copy it. All right, so far we have just 3 shapes, right? And we wouldn't be able to animate them until we start using bones. So now I need to get out the bone tool. And to do that, if you look in the tool panel here, it's kind of stuck. So let's pop open our tools, edit toolbar. And if we look in here, there's going to be the bone tool. I'm just going to go ahead and drag that tool out and put it by the rectangle for now. Okay, so I have my bone tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click and drag. And what this does is it only allows you to choose one symbol or click on one symbol at one time. So I start there and notice it highlights that first symbol. And now as I come up, it's got a little slash indicating that I can't connect anything because I'm over just the same symbol. But now that I get over the next symbol, it says, oh, you could connect to this. So that's great. I'll go ahead and connect. So I let go of the mouse, and then I click and drag again, and I get that little slash indicating I can't do anything until I get to the next symbol. All right, so once I get there, I've got it set up. Now, notice there's an armature here, and if I press F10, it just has a single keyframe right now. Nothing's happened. But if I go a little further down the road here and I get my black arrow out, I can now select this top shape and drag it, and the other shapes go along. And you can even manipulate it a little bit more. And then if I go further out, let's drag it over to the other side. Great. So I have, it starts, goes one way, goes the other way, and I get that initial animation. Now right now, none of those bones have springiness to them, right? So if I wanted to do that, I'd need to just click, and I click back on the first bone. So notice it just says graphic here, so I need to click right on that little part, and it says bone. And notice spring here doesn't have any strength set to it. So let's go ahead and just crank up the strength on this, and I won't have any damping. Let's just see what that does. So 1, 2, and then it just is kind of bouncing back there. All right, so 1, 2, and then it just kind of gets stuck. Now, if I, let's fiddle around with that strength a little bit more. Let's add some damping now. Now, we should see some fading. Yeah, so it gets a little more subtle, it stops, but it's still kind of on that one side. Let's see if this bone has any effect on it too. So I'll crank up the strength on this. And does it affect anything at all? So this bone is still being affected by the bone underneath. So let's set the strength on the first bone down and just see if there's anything that happens with that. In fact, I'll make the strength weaker, noticeably weaker than the other one. So now I get a bigger behavior. It's like the second bone becomes heavier and it pulls that down more. So that's an interesting thing. So I just encourage you to fiddle around with bones. It's kind of an interesting, different way of working. You might not use spring at all with it. In general, I've used it just to connect characters for walk cycles and things. But you might decide that you want to do it that way too. All right, I hope this is helpful.